Hare Krishna, welcome back to our Krishna stories, bedtime stories. And today we are setting off again with Krishna on his many unlimited adventures, but a very special and beautiful one today. Let's just begin by deeply meditating on the Mahamantra once. Let's chant it together while deeply praying and requesting Krishna to manifest his beautiful pastimes in our hearts and minds always. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. These pastimes are like a water, a quenching water for someone who's in a desert, and a medicine for someone who's diseased. So, finally, Kalia was about to be killed, but he was saved, as we saw last time, and then he was sent away from Yamuna. He was sent to a beautiful place in the ocean, and some say that he actually took shelter in what is today the Fiji Islands, but who knows? And so Krishna and the cowherd boys and all the Brajavasis, the residents of Vrindavan, they were all there on the banks of the Yamuna. And it had become so late by now. And they were so happy to get Krishna back from Kalia's clutches. Yashoda could not stop crying and just kept Krishna on her lap, kept kissing him and looking at him. And all the cowherd men and the women and the boys and everyone came and they were just caressing Krishna. They were just so happy to have him back. And Krishna was just in blissful reciprocation to everyone's love, just smiling back at them, speaking sweet words to them. And so it became quite late in the evening. And so they thought, let's just have a nice sleep here on the banks of the Yamuna. It's such a beautiful night, and the moon is out and the birds are singing, and let's just sleep here. It's perfect weather. And it will gladden our hearts on this snowy day to think of how wonderful that bank of Yamuna must have been, where the sands were softer than the softest, this talcum powder which we put on our faces. It was even softer than that. And everyone was sleeping in the sands in different places and somewhere, and everyone was surrounding Krishna. And most of them couldn't sleep. Every 2 minutes they would get up and Krishna's okay. And some would sleep and some would whisper to each other, see how sweet and beautiful Krishna is looking. Someone would ask their mother, can I just go sleep next to Krishna? They would say, no, don't disturb him. He's been so tired, with that Kalia. And finally, after several hours, everyone slept. And the minute everyone slept, there was a blazing fire everywhere, huge forest fire. According to some of the great knowers of these pastimes in their hearts, they say that it was one of Kalia's close associates, loyal associates. Kalia and many of the snakes, there was a huge kingdom of snakes. They all left for the ocean. So some of them were they were vengeful that how could, and so one of them did this, and they set the entire place on fire by their venom and their powerful poison. And suddenly everyone started feeling hot, and they all got up and saw all around them blazing fire and flames reaching the sky. These were tall. They were in the middle of the forest on the bank of Yamuna. So they were all tall trees and all engulfed in flames. There was no question of going anywhere, and there was no escape. And all they knew is Krishna and Balaram. And they had faith that Krishna is such a good boy that Narayan will always protect him. The destiny will always, providence will always be on his side. And so they said, Krishna, Krishna, please. But they had unflinching faith in Krishna's protection. And so they all cried out, Krishna, Krishna, Mahabhaha, please save us. And then Krishna smiled. And then suddenly he took a big breath. And he took a big breath and he swallowed. And as he swallowed, the entire forest fire, all its flames, everything started entering his mouth. And within few moments, it was all completely gone. And everyone rejoiced, and everyone was so happy to finally be relieved of this forest fire. But actually, whether there was a forest fire or not, they were all always equally happy and equally blissful, because they were always sheltered by Krishna, always relishing his beautiful face, always relishing offering him their best of whatever they had and best of whatever they could give. So Krishna in this way saved them from this unlimited forest fire. And that next morning, they all set out back to their residences in Vrindavan. And it was like a giant parade escorting their king, little child Krishna, back to his home. And they were so happy. It was a beautiful, fun time. And then after that, every day again, the cowherd boys would go out in the mornings. And as usual, they had every day was a new day full of excitement and adventure. What is Krishna going to play today? What are we going to eat today? Where are we going to go today? Vrindavan was like an unlimited forest, providing them newer and newer adventures, newer and newer things they had not seen, and creatures they had not seen, and sounds they had not heard, and fruits they had not tasted, and every day was just, they were on the edge of their beds waiting to wake up and go to the forest with Krishna. And the Bhagavatam describes in detail the games they would play. They would play all kinds of games. Some days they would play the blindfold game. And the blindfold was a very artful game. There were thousands and thousands of cowherd boys, and they would tie a blindfold. And then you had to either pick someone out and exactly guess who they were, or sometimes someone would cover the blindfolded persons, they would touch them, and just by that touch they have to guess who that person is. And sometimes the games, sometimes some would cheat and they would look, and sometimes some would peek, and sometimes some would get so upset they would start swinging their arms around, and sometimes Krishna would suddenly come and pull a boy's hair, and the boy would wonder, who pulled my hair? And he would pull someone else's hair, and he would pull some, and everyone was pulling each other's hair and pulling and spoiling, ruffling their hair and taking out the flower decoration and adding some other decoration, and all done in fun and joke and joy. And after a long time of hair pulling, they would all lie down exhausted. And then they would say, Krishna, do you want to eat some fruit? And then very excitedly, they would all climb some high trees, get this fruit and that fruit, and they would say, Krishna, which one? And some had gone so high, they would call out, Krishna, which fruit do you want? And then Krishna would convey to one boy, and he would tell the other boy, the other boy, the other boy, and then they would pass down this fruit, and like an offering to a great king, they would say, Your Majesty, your fruit has arrived. And Krishna would taste the fruit and say, thank you. And sometimes suddenly this monarch game would start, and one group of boys would leave and they became the enemies. They would say, we have to defeat these kings. And they would decide. And suddenly there was a war, and they would pick up sticks and stones and all kinds of things. And they would remember, all the different incarnations of Krishna. Sometimes someone would say, I am Ravan. And sometimes someone would say, oh, I am the great Bali. And different pastimes they would enact and play and beat each other, and then again be happy and eat. And in this way they passed their time so beautifully. One day, one of the boys picked up a particular fruit, which was exactly in the shape of a round, hard ball. And that was the origin of all the ball games we have today. And they started playing with these balls and throwing it at each other and hitting each other and throwing it. And then one boy said, look how skillful I am. And he threw a ball in the air, the fruit. And he took another fruit and hit that fruit while it was in the air. And everyone went, bravo, I can do that too. And then someone threw two fruits together and hit both of them. And 3 and 5 and 10, and suddenly the entire forest, there were only fruits flying. and getting hit in midair. And a huge flurry of fruit, all getting hit in midair. And all the birds were wondering what's happened today. The fruits are usually on the ground, but why is there these layers of fruit in the skies? And they were having fun pecking at all the fruits from up there. And then all the cowherd boys again had a lot of fun. And they went a little ahead. And then Krishna started to dance. And everyone was so excited and they encouraged Krishna. Excellent, excellent, go on, keep dancing, keep dancing. And while Krishna was dancing, suddenly one of the boys jumped on his shoulders. And then with him on his shoulders, Krishna started to dance. And that became a new game. Everyone put each other on their shoulders and they were dancing with each other on their shoulders. And they played all these kinds of games. And suddenly one of the boys said, "Hey, don't touch me." And he started running. And the other boy said, "I will touch you." And the game of touch started. Everyone was running, half were running here, half were running there, and someone was running behind Krishna, and Krishna was running after someone, and everyone was touch. Oh no, and this, that, and this huge, beautiful game started. And then they would take the flowers and the fruits, go here, go there, run there. And suddenly, while they were doing all this, one of the boys said, "Hey, hey, 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 who goes there? Who goes there?" And while they were playing, there was one particular path on which that was one of the ways to go across the river and go into other villages. And these boys always felt that they were the kings of this part of the forest. And anybody who went by had to pay tax. And that day, they suddenly spotted these young girls with pots on their head full of milk and yogurt and butter and ghee and all kinds of preparations. And the boys stopped them. Who goes there? Who goes there? And they surrounded these girls. And the girls got very scared. The same girls of Vrindavan who would long to meet Krishna. But they knew that sometimes things could get really out of hand and maybe all our pots will be broken, our yogurt will be stolen, and I hope they don't beat us. And some days Krishna would say, "Okay, okay, okay. So what are you carrying today?" And some days the girls would say, you boys are just thieves and we are not going to give you anything today. Get out of our way. We are on a very busy, we work hard for our families. We don't just play all day with the cows like you all do. We are going to the next village to sell the yogurt, to sell the butter, which we have churned with our own hands, and look how tired we are. Please move aside. And some days the boys would oblige. And some days the boys would say, we are the kings of this place. First, you give us tax. And a beautiful, intense, strong debate would ensue. What tax are you giving? How can you give tax? And some of the girls were very timid and they would suggest, maybe we should just give them something. And some of the girls were really strong. And even the boys knew which girls to target. They would only go to the timid ones and say, "You better give us all of this. Do you understand? We are the kings of..." And they would say, "Yes, yes, please take it." And the tough girls, none of the boys would go near them. And then there was Radharani, and there was Lalita and Vishakha and all of these. And Krishna and his friends would go to that group and they would demand, "Give us our share." Every day we maintain these paths, we clean, how is it that this path exists here? Because of us. And look how tired we are gardening these forests of Vrindavan. And they would argue, who gives water to these trees? Who grows all these grasses? Who does all that? And sometimes the girls would get confused and sometimes they would laugh. And in this way, this was one of the most beautiful parts of the day. And this particular event used to take place at a place called Dana Ghati, which is still there near the Govardhan mountain. And until now, there are celebrations of these beautiful pastimes and stories of Krishna stopping the girls and demanding a tax. And sometimes they would get a lot of tax, sometimes nothing. Sometimes they would get angry and break all the pots. Sometimes the girls would get scared and give them everything. And every day was just a lot of fun. And the boys, they waited for this to happen. And so did the cowherd girls. They were just waiting. When will Krishna come and collect the tax? And sometimes they would plan before. Today we aren't going to give him anything. Okay, we are approaching that spot. And some days they would just long. Krishna, you're coming soon. And they would be waiting. Where are these boys today? Why aren't they coming? And in this way, they would have these wonderful exchanges of tax. One day, when Krishna was playing in the forest, one very evil, monstrous demon whose name was Pralamba joined the group. And this particular demon was very expert at doing research. He had exactly researched what went wrong with the demons so far, why were they not successful, and why I will be successful. As all of his predecessor monsters who came to try to kill Krishna were simply killed and defeated, he also was an extremely powerful mystic yogi who could change his form at will, who could assume terrible forms, who had unlimited strength and power. And so he found out that that particular day, one of the boys did not come, just one of those thousands of boys. And he took the form of that boy and entered. And he was so good, he exactly disguised himself, and nobody knew that this is not the other boy who is missing. And as he entered, he was thinking, when he saw Krishna and Balram for the first time, actually he appreciated their beauty. Actually, really, he was stunned by their beauty and their love. But then his envy and hatred and anger again clouded his judgment, and he said, I am first going to kill Balaram, because it seems that actually he is the one who really encourages Krishna, and Krishna feels safe in his protection. Once I kill him, it'll be much easier to kill Krishna. That's the mistake all these other demons made. They went directly for the little boy. I have to first weaken him. And once he is weakened, then I will easily kill him. And so he absolutely mingled with the boys. He was joking and enjoying and playing, and actually he started having a good time. And Krishna immediately, who was the Paramatma in everyone's heart, knew who this boy exactly is. And so Krishna made a very clever plan. And suddenly Krishna clapped his hands and he said, all right, we're going to play a very special game today. And all the boys surrounded him. What's the game? What's the game? And he said, well, we're going to divide ourselves into two teams, and there'll be a number of intense competitions. And finally, at the end of all those competitions, the winning team will get to sit on the losing team's back and be carried all over the forest, and they'll be declared the kings of this forest. And everyone was excited. Yes, finally we're going to show. And they got into such a competitive mood and such a mood of, yes, we are going to show. And naturally, they chose Krishna and Balram as the two leaders of the teams. And Krishna and Balram, one by one, picked boys on either side. And Pralamba got picked by Krishna. And he was happy. He said, if I win, great, I'll sit on Balram's back and kill him. If I lose, I'll carry him on my back and kill him. Either way. And then an intense series of competitions began. And all this while, these competitions led them to this particular banyan tree, which was called I'm forgetting the name. There was a particular name this tree had. It was such a special tree. It was so huge. It is described that it was like a beautiful, gigantic cloud on the ground, because it was so beautiful. It was covered, and it was a cloud filled with rainbows within. And because all of these rainbows and all of these Tera Kadamba, no, not Tera Kadamba. This was a particular type of banyan tree. And I think, okay, it's not here in my bookmark. But with B, it's with Barakali or something like that. With B. In this story, in the chapter, the name is mentioned. So, and there were many colorful birds and all kinds of colorful fruits, and there were these roots going up and down everywhere. So this tree could be traversed in all directions. So it was like a beautiful celestial palace in a cloud on earth. And this was such a beautiful place. And it is said actually at that time it was summer in Vrindavan. And summer is actually hot, especially in India. It's really hot and quite unbearable. But this tree made it most beautiful. This tree didn't allow a single ray of the sun to reach the ground, and yet it was pleasant inside this tree. And the tree was so huge, all the boys and all their friends fit under this tree. And finally, their competitions culminated at this tree. And finally, Krishna stood at the root of the tree and said, after analyzing all the competitions, and I thank everyone on both teams for putting a very good effort, but the winning team is Balaram's team. And everyone was ecstatic and they were doing cartwheels and throwing each other and said, finally, we are the kings of this land. And come on, servants, pick us up and take us around. And one by one, all the boys came, and Krishna carried Sridama, and Madhumangal carried someone, and someone carried someone. And Pralamba finally came. Bhandirvan. No, Bhandirvan is the name of one of the forests of Vrindavan. It's something else, something close to that, another name. So finally, Pralamba made sure that he is going to carry Balaram. And very innocently, of course, Balaram knew, but still playing the role of a little human child perfectly. Krishna and Balaram played along, and Balaram sat on this little boy's shoulders. And all the boys were so happy. We're going to carry the kings around, and the kings were saying, take me here, take me there. Okay, now get me this fruit, and show me that bird, and I want to see this scene. And it was such a wonderful event. All the boys carrying, and Krishna was also carrying Sridama, the Lord of the universe, who is worshipped on Ananta Shesh. Lakshmi Devi is pressing his feet, and Brahma is coming out of his navel, and from his body, millions of universes are being generated. And when the demigods go to the ocean of milk, they are so unqualified, they can't even see Krishna. They have to pray to Brahma, who prays in his heart. And in his heart, he sometimes has a vision that Vishnu has answered my prayer. And that same supreme divine source of everything, the supreme controller, the maintainer, the enjoyer, is now a little servant under a cowherd boy, and he's pleasing him in whatever way he wants. And while all this was going on, Pralamba said, enough is enough. It's time for some serious work now. They've had enough fun, I've had enough fun. Now for serious work. And then suddenly he started running with inhuman speed and took off from the rest of the crowd and started going far away. And Balaram, playing the role of a perfect human child, got scared and he held on tight. He said, Pralamba, Pralamba, or whatever that boy's name was. Where are you going? It's not we're too far. We'll get lost. We won't know how to go back. Let's go somewhere else. And now, after playing along a little bit, Balaram thought, this rascal, enough is enough. I'll also show him. And suddenly, while acting like a scared little child, Balaram started increasing his weight a little by little by little. And suddenly Pralamba was, with all his strength, he realized, I'm trying to hold him up. I'll get crushed. And because of the strength he was using, he could not contain that strength in his disguised form. And suddenly he takes his original form. Massive, huge form, way above the trees and the clouds. And the scene was so beautiful. It was like a big black cloud, full of, like a monsoon cloud with lightning. Just like the scene in the sky when it's pitch dark and there are streaks of lightning. That's how exactly this beautiful scene looked. Balaram was like this lightning, and Pralamba was like this big dark cloud. And as Pralamba ran and ran and ran, further and further, Balaram became heavier and heavier and heavier until Pralamba was carrying the weight of the universe. He just couldn't tolerate anymore. And Balram, his only concern was, don't take me so far away from my friends and Krishna. He didn't really care what whoever this is. And because he was not stopping, Balram had no choice. And Balram, with his fist, with all his strength, just one hit, and broke his collarbone. And this huge monster came crashing into the ground and died. And from behind, if you can see in this beautiful little painting, all the boys were watching. And of course they knew. And they were so absorbed in the game, they thought maybe this is part of the game. And they were like, yes, Balram, you're the king, kill him, kill him. And when Balram slayed him, they threw up their garments and they were throwing fruits and all hail the king of Vrindavan, Balaram, and they surrounded him and played and danced and joked, and they were so happy, so happy. And then Balaram got off, and Balaram didn't even care what had just happened. He just came rushing and embraced all his friends and embraced Krishna, and they were so happy again. And then all of them went back to the place where they wanted to eat some food. And by now, their appetite had built up. It is said that every day, Vrinda Devi, who's actually the orchestrator of all these beautiful pastimes behind the scenes, would send somebody to really increase their appetite so that when they sat for lunch, they had a good lunch and they could eat nicely and enjoy everything. So now their appetite was built up. They laid out their lunches and they were having their lunch when suddenly, for the second time, this happened after a period of time, but suddenly, huge forest fire. And now it was summer, so it was so hot, and everything at once, it was so dry and everything caught fire, and everywhere immediately there was fire. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I made a small mistake in this story. Sorry, it didn't happen like that. I mixed up both the stories. So while they were having their lunch, the cows wandered away. And when suddenly they realized that the cows have wandered away, at that time they got up and they said, where are the cows gone? Where are the cows gone? And Krishna calls out to the cows. The cows gave a reply. And then they knew, oh, they're in that direction. They traced their footsteps, went. And when they reached there, at that time, suddenly they were surrounded by a forest fire. And then Krishna told them, all right, everybody. And they naturally first went to Krishna. Krishna, save us, Krishna, Balram. And Krishna said, all right, close your eyes. And imagine they had so much faith. If we are in danger and if someone says, close your eyes, we can't do it unless we have full faith that this person will absolutely protect me and I need to do nothing. We'd at least keep our eyes open. Okay, you do your work, but I'll just be. And Krishna said, close your eyes. And at once, without thinking, without even a second, without even questioning, there's absolutely no question. They close their eyes. Krishna didn't have to check, you're looking, no. Finished. They close their eyes. And as soon as they closed their eyes, again, Krishna went. Oh, my mouse. And he took all the fire into his mouth. And the reason he told the cowherd boys to close their eyes is because he didn't want to show this side of his godliness to all the cowherd boys. He just wanted them to feel, well, I'm just one of you, and that's all. Though after this incident, the boys started questioning, do we have a demigod amongst us? But that thought didn't last too long, because by evening Krishna was again playing with them, fighting with them, and getting defeated, so they forgot about this thought. And this way they all went home. And all the Brajvasis, they were so happy to meet Krishna and Balaram. And that evening, they heard the beautiful story of how in the morning they had gone and played and had done this, and then Pralamba and the forest fire, and all these stories were heard by the Brajvasis with a cup of salt, a big pinch of salt, because they didn't believe anything. They thought that, oh, maybe a man who wanted to do something came and Balramji hit him and he left away, and a forest fire, maybe in a small bush there was some smoke coming and Krishna must have blown at it, and they said Krishna swallowed the first fire. So for them it was completely different. And in this way, soon the rainy season arrived. And I thought we would have had time to discuss that, but we don't. And I actually wanted to speak from, I'll just end with just saying one thing, that in 1961, Prabhupada was, this is much before he came to the West and anything, he was invited to Japan to be a part of this international humanitarian effort. And in response to that invitation, he was wondering, how do I convey the message of the Bhagavat to these Oriental and that kind of, and imagine this is 1961, where there was just the beginnings of cross-cultural events taking place. And so Prabhupada decided, I will write a book. The Japanese people love art, and they also like the season of rains and autumn. And at that time, when the conference was going to happen, it would have been the autumn rainy season. So he thought, I will write a booklet on the chapter of rain in Vrindavan, rainy season in Vrindavan. And based on that, I will request an Oriental artist to paint, and I will give philosophy. And with that presentation, I'll go to Japan. That never manifest even during Prabhupada's entire life. And after he left the planet, some of his disciples discovered this work called The Light of the Bhagavat, which is a beautiful book available today. And so, and then the devotees got a very famous Japanese artist to paint these Oriental paintings, and next to it is Prabhupada's description, and it's so beautiful. I just put a few of those paintings here, and in the Bhagavatam, and with Prabhupada's added additional commentaries of comparing these beautiful paintings to life lessons and much deeper lessons in Bhakti also. So in this way, Prabhupada then introduces some of the beautiful things. And next time, we will see what happened at Vrindavan when the king of heaven became angry. For some reason, he became angry at the residents of Vrindavan. Thank you very much. See you on Wednesday. Have a wonderful night. May Krishna always reside in your heart. Hare Krishna.